Check. 1, 2, 3.
The D.
Brief.
Brief. This is the D Brief.
Your guide to Detroit.
Your guide to Detroit's
arts and entertainment scene.
This is the D
Brief.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm your co-host. My name is Seth Ressler.
And I'm Becky Scarcello.
And we have talked a lot about all the different buildings here in Detroit. I mean, I'm not from here, and I've never seen a city like this where there are so many cool buildings that are not in use.
Right.
That have just been boarded up for years and nobody, and now it feels like a moment where a lot of people are doing exciting things with a lot of these, just treasures that have been boarded up forever.
Yes, and sometimes the really cool thing about it is that they remained a sort of time capsule. So a lot of these were literally just the doors were shut and locked, and there's like really cool stuff in there.
Well, we're going to talk about one of those stories today. We have on the podcast with us the co-owner of Mindfield, which is a creative media boutique that's based here in Detroit. And they've not only been very successful as a media boutique, but now they are doing a lot with one of these buildings in particular, the Grand Army of the Republic building. This is down at Cass Corridor and Grand River. I guess you call it the G.A.R building. Is that what the...
Yeah, not Cass Corridor. Just Cass the street.
I'm sorry, Cass, Grand River. See, you can tell I'm not from
Little
there.
different thing. We were talking about Dally in the Alley last week on That's Cass Corridor.
Gotcha. Okay. So see, this is why I still have to use my Google Maps to go anywhere in Detroit 4 years in.
That's legit.
All right. Anyway, welcome to the show, David Carleton of Mindfield.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yes, welcome.
This is fun, yeah.
So let's talk about this building. Is it the G.A.R building? Is that what people say?
Commonly known as the G.A.R building, affectionately known as the Castle. But if you're a Civil War buff, if you're a historian and things related to that, this is definitely the G.A.R building. Out of respect for the group, the Grand Army of the Republic, which was formed by the Union Civil War veterans back in the 1860s. So depending upon who you are and where you're coming from, it's got a plethora of names.
Tell us a little bit about the history of this building.
It's phenomenal. It literally looks, and a lot of people are familiar with it only by its shape. It looks like a castle. There are two turrets. It's sandstone, red sandstone. That strong construction type that, was befitting the Civil War veterans. After the Civil War, there was no VA, there was no VFW. The veterans came back, and having gone through what they went through together, they obviously bonded. So the several thousand that came back to Detroit were still getting together. Before this building was built, it was in parlors, it was in saloons, it was in church fellowship halls. And after a while, they realized other cities were building these memorial halls, and things weren't too different back in the 1800s. It took a while for the city to get its act together. But by the late 1890s, they had the $44,000 that they needed to build this building.
Wow.
And they put it together. There was a ribbon-cutting ceremony in 1901, and for the next 40 years or so, it was where the veterans of the Civil War came together to have formal meetings, to play poker and drink whiskey. There were groups related to it that met there, so it's had a storied history. It's a phenomenal building.
And it's very large, right? Like how many square feet in there?
It's not actually that big, and it looks more imposing probably. It's about 25,000 square feet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's 4 stories unless you're the city of Detroit and you want to tax us for the balcony, and then it's a 5-story building.
And then what was happening after those 40 years of the veterans using
Around
it?
about the 1940s, they were dying off. I
Sure.
think there were 3 or 4 left at the time, and they said, we can't see well enough, we can't hear, we're not able to get in and up and around. So they handed the keys back over to the city, who had actually built most of the building for them. And in subsequent years, it became a Parks and Rec Center. So for another 40 years or so, you could go there to USO dances. You could go in and learn to play golf, ping pong, et cetera, right up to the early 80s. At that point, there wasn't a neighborhood.
Right.
There wasn't money, certainly, to keep it open, and Coleman Young mothballed it about 83 or so.
Wow.
So what happens in the time where you see this building? You grew up here.
Yeah.
You knew what it was, but when you say to your brother and your partner, let's buy that thing.
Right. My brother and I had purchased another building downtown in 92 and converted that into residential lofts. So we've been downtown for about almost 30 years at this point. And we'd be around, we'd bike, we'd rollerblade, what have you. And you go past and like so many other people go, wouldn't it be cool to own that castle? Would that be sweet? In 2006, the city put an RFP out for developers. 18 groups responded. We came in second to the Illich family. And the city said, you know what, we love the plans you have for this building. We would love to see what you would do with it. You're a couple billion shy of where the Illiches are, and we're going to give it to them. And they did. And the Illiches, as I'm told, over the 2 years or so that passed, wouldn't sign that one part of the deal that said we're not going to tear it down. And they're a phenomenal family. I'm not bashing them. They've done wonders for the city of Detroit. They do have a knack for if something's in their way, they're going to get rid of it.
Right.
So since they wouldn't sign that, the city called us back and said, you know what, we've ended negotiations with the Illich family. If you're interested, you guys can take it. And we ran in. And amusingly, it took us 3 more years to negotiate to purchase ourselves. Because we didn't have that $1 billion bank account. We had restored buildings, but we're not developers. So we had to do a lot of convincing. Fortunately, we had a good family friend, Sheila Cockrell, who you know.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And she finally got together with the head of planning and development and said, look, no one else is in line to fix this building. Sell the damn thing. And they came together. We wrote them a nice big check and walked away. Incidentally, we didn't walk away with the keys to the building because the locks had been broken in so many times. So we sat at a closing. We slid a check across the desk and said, okay, what are the keys? And they said, you'll need a crowbar, you'll need a Dremel or a Makita, and pull the plywood off. That's how you get in.
Had you been inside the building at that point?
You know, we've been inside a couple times over the years. You know, between 2006 with the original RFP and 2011, we'd gotten in a couple times. But what was interesting is there was no electricity. The windows were boarded up. We literally walked through the entire building with a flashlight.
Wow.
So we kind of knew what we were buying.
Not fully.
We stepped over a lot of pigeon carcasses and fortunately, once we did pull the plywood off, the bones were still strong.
Who's on that first trip with you through the building, and what are you guys thinking, and what are you saying to each other as you're looking at this property you've just bought?
You know what? It was awesome because it was the climax of so many years of do we have it? Do we not have it? What does this lawyer think? I think we went through 3 or 4 mayors over that same period.
Sure, yeah.
So there was a lot going on. You're giddy at one point. You're high-fiving. You walk through, and my business partners, my brother Tom and Sean Emery, there was just an elation that doesn't matter. We're going to make this happen.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, we had a bank that supported us at that point. They fortunately saw our vision. But you'd get in and you're stepping on broken glass and you're literally stepping on pigeon carcasses and all the mess that pigeons would leave behind. And it had been broken into a number of times. So it wasn't really scrapped. It wasn't like people went in and tore the walls apart. But you could tell there were raves and the like. So it was exciting and I don't think really daunting. We knew it was ahead of us.
So during that time, you're waiting, you don't know if you're going to get it.
Yeah.
You might get it. So you're just going about your business, right? Building your company.
Yeah. Fortunately, as I said, we're not developers. We have done one other building. It was a hobby. It was a passion type project. But we've always had Mindfield, and Mindfield's been successful. We're coming up on year 20 next year.
Wow.
So it wasn't like we sat around a desk going, when are they going to call? What's going on? Yeah. We were off, with Toyota. We were off with Lincoln. We were off with Google or Cessna or whoever we were working with at the time. So this wasn't a preoccupation. It didn't keep us up nights.
So you have the building, and now you have 2 restaurants in there. You've got like a performance hall space in there, and then you've got the Mindfield offices. Yep. What's the order and how do you go about putting all those together?
We're very fortunate in that we've been able to attract and retain a phenomenal team, whether it's Mindfield, whether it's the 2 restaurants we have on the lower level. We have an event space where we do weddings regularly during wedding season, I like to call it. You find good people, you support them, you make sure that they're attaining what they want to professionally or in life. And let them go. Stay out of their way. We have the tavern and the diner. I think in 5 years we've been so hands off. If we've asked about 1 or 2 things to be on the menu, other than that, we're not chefs. We're not restaurateurs. We found in our current chef, Matthew Baldridge, is the best we've had. He loves what he does. He realizes it's hospitality industry. We stay out of his way. And the dishes he creates, the experience that our clients, our customers have is, I think, second to none.
But I have to commend your courage. So, Seth, you might not realize at the time when these restaurants went in, that was a risky move.
2015.
That was risky.
Yeah, it was early.
Yeah.
In terms of, and it's fun now because there's almost a restaurant a month or a restaurant a quarter that's opening. But yeah, a lot of people looked at us and said, okay, you guys aren't developers. What are you doing buying the building? Okay, you guys aren't restaurateurs. What are you doing? Not one, but two restaurants. It's about having a vision, and my kids have taught me that YOLO phrase. You only live once.
Yes.
And I got it, I'm sure, from my 14-year-old or 13-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, the neighborhood wasn't such that there were things to walk to, or you created a destination.
We're very fortunate. A lot of things worked in our favor. DTE's across the street, and when they saw us investing and taking the building seriously, they kind of took us under their wing. From day one almost, DTE provided their security teams and to this day, they circle the building overnight. On their normal security routine, their own property, they come around. So I think they realized what the potential was. I think for their sake, they realized that if this didn't work on that part of town, people are going to notice. A lot of things worked in our favor.
And was Beacon Park in the back of their minds yet, or do you think you really
They knew they had to do something with that land, and we've had a great relationship with Jerry Anderson and the others over at DTE. There was a time where they were going to put apartments in with retail on the first level. The city, for some reason, wouldn't let them put a parking lot in. I don't know why. But ultimately, when they saw the opportunity really to create neighborhood, to create that sense of destination, they brought in this great designer from Boston, put the park together, designed the restaurant. And things are going to speed off from that. Illich's have a lot of properties there. Eventually, they're going to do something.
We hope, yes. Yeah. It seems like it should have just been created that way. I mean, how your building kind of like bookends the park there. It's just amazing. And then those incredible light shows that you do.
I like to call the park our front yard.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is. Yeah.
How did those light shows come about?
We have, and again, we've been downtown for quite some time. Sue, I just blanked on her, Midtown Detroit.
Mosey.
Sue Mosey, thank you very much. Several years ago called us for the De-Electricity Show. And said, which is big fun, and said, hey, we have an opportunity to do some projection mapping on the DIA. Are you guys interested? And we had done some projection mapping with the Red Wings. We turned the ice rink at Joe Louis at one point into a literal screen. And she had seen that and said, if you're interested, the DIA would be fun. And we went in, started talking, and we said, that would be fun. What if we did the front of the DIA and the front of the Detroit Public Library? So literally have almost a 360 projection mapping experience. And that went off phenomenally. It was
honestly one of my most favorite nights.
Wasn't that fun?
Yeah.
And I knew, too. I knew it was really exciting when Saturday night, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, so many people stopped on Woodward. We literally shut down Woodward for about 15, 20 minutes until the police finally said, this is great. This is a wonderful community thing. We need Woodward open.
Yeah.
So I stood there and literally cars were honking and stopped and people were biking. And I thought, okay, this is good.
Have you seen the light shows on the G.A.R building?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so David, can you explain it a little bit?
Projection mapping, it's one of our favorite things to do. It's certainly not a moneymaker, which is fine. It allows our team creativity where they're not just creating content for a TV or a movie screen or a cell phone or pad or what have you. We take the surface of any building or anything, a sheet of ice, the museum, the library, or in this case, the G.A.R. building, and create programming that fits specifically on the shape of that building. And we've done it, the Downtown Detroit Partnership, David Cow and Sue's son actually, has been a phenomenal benefactor for us in that he goes, you know what, here's X amount of dollars and put programs up there. No big requests, no what have you. We've been doing it since the park opened, so year 2, year 3 now maybe.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Just the colors, and sometimes it looks like flames are coming out of the turrets, and there's words and shapes, and it's like this whole concert experience when a musician's playing.
Absolutely,
like full-on production.
When they combine it with activities that they've got going in the park, it's really a unique experience for Detroit.
I want to go back to the G.A.R. building for a moment and talk about some of the artifacts that you found in there.
Yeah.
What did you discover?
You know what? It was neat. And unfortunately, a lot was taken from the building over the years, but there's still those things that kind of slid behind walls and things like that. The building was vacant 30 years. We went in. Probably our most significant find was the original marble plaque, and it probably measures 2.5 feet by 4 or 5 feet. It was at the ribbon cutting in 1901. Someone had the wherewithal when they started to close up the building to actually take it off the wall, and they hid it beneath a platform stage.
Wow.
We got a call. We were 6 blocks away in our other building. We got a call one day from the contractors who said, "You've got to come check this out. We found something. You won't even believe what we found. You've got to come." And we're like, "Well, we got a couple meetings, and what if we come afterward? You've got to get over here right now." So we moved some things. We raced over. And it was, again, our bestest find. This beautiful memorial, this marble plaque, engraved gold lettering, all the veterans, 6 or so, that were integral in having this building built. And it was a thank you to them at the ribbon cutting. A neat story that came from that, they listed 6 men. Soon after we opened Republic, a lot of people came through and, they wanted to be in the building. They came into the restaurant. A woman came in with a bunch of photographs, which is a pretty common happening. And she said, "This is my great-great-grandfather. Here's his discharge papers. Here's everything about when he was in the Civil War. His name was William Claxton." We're like, "Wow, that really sounds familiar.
Oh,
That's
man.
funny. That sounds William Claxton." They explained it and went on. And we said, hold on a second. Come with us. We took her to the plaque, her family, and the first name of the people thanked for getting the building built was William Christopher Claxton.
That's crazy.
We were like, holy cow, this
and
was
she
meant to be.
just took it upon herself to be coming in and
Yeah. And it happens quite a bit. We'll have
Yeah.
people come in and even if we're not there, they'll leave artifacts at the host stand. It's not odd for us to come in on a Monday morning and someone say, "Hey, there's someone's discharge papers that they knew if it stayed in the attic, it was going to be thrown away or what have you." So there's so much love for this building historically,
Yes.
architecturally. We've met with people who used – great story. Again, around that same time, we were still in construction. A woman brought by her parents. She was older. Her parents were much older. And she said, "You know what? Mom and Dad met at a USO dance in this building. They've been married 55 years, what have you. They would love to come back and walk through one last time." It's the kind of thing you get goosebumps.
Yes.
You're like, "Oh, yeah, bring them
Of
back."
course.
Yeah, And they walked through, and we kind of stood off to the side because it was their moment. And, they would talk with the kids and the family and go, "Yeah, absolutely. I knew as soon as I saw her across the dance floor that I was in love." And so we've been so fortunate at just being on the receiving end of people who've come through. Sheila Cockrell used to date a golfing instructor who would be giving lessons there, and she gave us that story before we even bought it. She's like, "I remember going to that building in the 70s or 60s.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you feel about it? I think people say this about old homes too, that there's not actually owners, but sort of just caretakers. Like
Absolutely.
you were sort of meant to kind of continue this history. And,
I like to say we're just paying the mortgage.
Wait, are there ghosts though?
I have not seen one. My son, who's in college now, both my boys are bussers in the diner. And my son, Cameron, this summer worked one Saturday. He stayed around to work a wedding. And I'm like, "Dude, stay down there. You got to be at work Sunday morning anyway." So he slept up in one of our edit suites. Oh. And I didn't think anything of it. I knew he was safe, and I wasn't worried about it. And he goes, "Dad, would there have been some people in the attic last night?" No. I said, I don't think so, buddy. Why?" "Yeah, it sure sounded like there were people in the attic last night."
Whoa.
I'm like, "Better you than me, buddy."
Right. Right.
Now you have been documenting this whole process,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
What are you doing?
I don't know yet. We actually, before we went through, and I'll have to have you two down and see, before we went through and started anything, we took our staff still photographer through, and we probably have a couple thousand before photos of the entire building. Literally, there was no power, so we had a generator, we had a Kino light, and went through everything from the restrooms to the garbage in the closets to the plaster falling to the attic. So we have lots and lots of still photographs. We do some neat before and after type postings. Video we have, right now we haven't had a lot of time.
Right.
So someday, in retirement, we'll come together every Sunday at 2 and go, "All right, now what are we going to do with this?" And someday.
Beautiful film. But how poetic that a film and video company takes over this project and every minute of it is documented.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your day job and tell us a little bit about Mindfield.
Mindfield, again, has been another great opportunity. The three of us are very like-minded. Our theory is our most important job is the next one. So we gotta kick it on this project. So we make sure the clients call us back, and it's worked well. We've been with Toyota for about 17 years now. They're our longest standing client, but we work with the big three. We've worked with Google, Cessna. We have a small team, a dozen on staff. When it gets busy, we'll bring in freelancers, but we do everything from broadcast TV commercials locally, nationally. We've done a lot of work with the Red Wings and the Tigers and the Lions over the years. So all that in-game media that you see, that's been us in the past. We were really fortunate. Bob Burry from the Detroit Historical Museum, he's retired now, but he brought us in to be a big part of that 1967 exhibit, the retrospective. If you haven't seen that yet, you should. It's a phenomenal story of what happened that summer.
It's really well done.
Yeah, and what's happened since, all the players. So it's neat in that every day we come to work, we have no idea, what it's going to bring and who's going to call. We had several years ago, we had a call one day from a woman from Google. We're like, yeah, you're from Google. What do you want, lady? What do you want us to buy?
Yeah.
And we wound up putting together like this 5, 6, 7-minute documentary video. They wanted to show what was going on in the city of Detroit and highlight a business. We worked with Frank Villegas in Southwest Detroit. He has Ideal parent company, does all sorts of things. Great guy. So you literally never know. The phone rings, and I literally one day I got a phone call from an agency that was working with the state of Michigan. That was probably on a Tuesday, and Friday morning I woke up in Stockholm, Sweden. We were doing a project there.
Okay.
What was the project?
Yeah.
You know what? Michigan at the time was working to increase biofuels. And if you know anything about Sweden, which I didn't at the time, they're probably leading the world in biofuels. So we went over there, we shot there for a week with everything from turning medical byproducts into fuels, cow poop, paper products, et cetera. So literally one day to the next, you never know where you're going.
And what kind of projects are you working on right now?
What do we have right now? You know what? One of our favorite and another long-term client, the Detroit Institute of Arts, has brought us on to put together a series of programs supporting really all the programs that have come out of the millage vote a few years ago. Everything that's done to reach out to school kids and seniors and veterans and bring art out into the communities. So we're doing 4 videos there. The auto show season's coming up, so we'll be busy from now until, now it's not, it used to be April when the New York show. Now Detroit's going to be in June. So our whole schedule is in flux, and we'll figure out what happens this year. We have had a lot of fun. We really are happy. We've been doing work with the Goodman Acker law firm, and we'd never done any lawyer spots before. And they called us, and they wanted to bring their brand up. They wanted to become more recognizable. Prior to that, they were working with Shatner. So we've been working with 3 or 4 years with them now. We just did a great kind of anthemic spot. Thank you to the city of Detroit. If you haven't seen yet, we're really happy with that. And they're great people. They kind of avoid the fray of some of the other law firms.
It's set apart, definitely.
Yeah. So, a little bit of everything.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right, David, we want you to play a little game.
Oh, dear.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I don't know.
You'll be good at it.
All right, here we go. We're going to start with this, because I have found since moving to Detroit that Detroit has a rich history when it comes to television commercials. I didn't realize this till I watched the TV show Detroiters.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite locally made TV commercial of all time?
I think the one I grew up remembering the most was, and he just passed away last year, Mr. Belvedere, who was a construction company owner.
Yeah.
And they had a great tagline. Of course, I won't be able to think of it, but he came in and he would tell you about what they do and how they do it. And the ending was, "We do good work."
Yes.
Yeah, that was his tagline, every commercial.
Yeah. Good one. Well, on that same note, do you have a favorite TV personality locally of all time?
Of all time, and probably nationwide, one of the greatest anchors, and it was at his funeral. He came to my father's, Bill Bonds, legendary. And he's known locally. He was in New York for a while. They tried to put him in L.A. He was so Detroit. And I'm fortunate I grew up around him and knew him that way. He was close friends with my parents.
You come from a media background.
Yeah, I was going to say, your dad was in the business.
It's in the family.
Yeah, Dad moved here. He started in TV in Flint, probably 62. He came down to Detroit in 66 or so. He was actually on the streets for a week during the riots. As a news reporter, they threw him out there.
Wow.
So I grew up in that culture, and Billy, just legendary. Nobody better.
Yeah.
What's the biggest misconception about the city of Detroit?
You know what? It's the video that the media outlets put out around the world. What have we been called? Beirut? Beirut-like.
Yeah.
The United States version of Beirut, Murder City, whatever.
Yep.
People who just do a flyby, don't take the time to talk to the people. I've been around the world. I've been really fortunate, and the people here are just second to none. So real, so honest, so much heart. People.
Agree.
Yeah.
So if you're looking out there, what's your next project to restore if you could pick any building?
If I could pick any building,
Yes.
there are two. And I've actually tried to grab them, and for reasons I can't explain, they're the two ballrooms. There's the Grandy Ballroom out Grand River, and down Jefferson. Is it the Vanity?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Is it the Vanity on Jefferson?
Yes.
I've walked through them both. One's owned by a church. One's owned by the Jefferson Chalmers community.
Yeah.
I can't get my hands on them, but I would die to restore something. We love the restoration. I'm not looking to have 400 apartments and 12,000 tenants and people complaining that their sinks dripping. I want to bring something back to life.
That's what I was wondering. So you'd make it the music venue?
You know, absolutely, yeah. You know, in as much as we brought the G.A.R. back and want people in it, you know, it's not residential. It's not anything that people can't get into. Put it back to what it was. You know, how exciting would it be to have the Who come back and do a small show at the Grandy Ballroom?
Yeah,
and they do it in a minute.
Wayne Kramer and that's
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Nuts, yeah.
It would be internationally recognized.
Did you have a favorite Detroit spot as a kid?
You know, my dad, being in the news business, brought us downtown all the time. Tiger Stadium, the original ballpark, because it was real. You know, the day that was torn down, it was Fenway. You know, it was Camden Yards or whatever is going on in Chicago. It was a real deal. I remember vaguely seeing the Lions play there in the snow. You know, back when football teams would play in a baseball stadium.
Yeah.
Probably off the top of my head, probably that.
Nice.
Yeah.
You seem like the type that would know some weird Detroit trivia facts. Do you have any to share with us?
Oh, wow. You know what I just learned earlier this summer, and I had no idea. We were at a fundraiser out at the Belle Isle Aquarium, and obviously Detroit bordering Canada, there was a lot back and forth during Prohibition. There was a speakeasy in the basement of the Belle Isle Aquarium, and I hadn't known that. And I was like,
it's a good one.
Yeah, there isn't a lot that wows me just because I have grown up and know the history and have been fortunate to get in and out of a lot of these buildings. But I was like, that's kind of cool.
This is where the fish would go drink during Prohibition.
Exactly.
Absolutely, yeah.
Exactly. They had little water tunnels to get down there. Yeah.
That's back when straws were cool.
Right, yes.
Right.
All right.
Nice.
David
That was
Carleton,
fun.
Thank you so much.
I think he had to be in the top 5 of people playing that
absolutely.
game.
That was a
It
lot
was
of
just
fun.
like bam, bam, bam.
Thank you. Good
Well,
call.
look, David Carleton, co-owner of Mindfield, and also the guy who has really brought the G.A.R.
building.
Yes, now
I got to
say it
retrain myself
right,
too
to say it that
because
way.
I slip into that. Yeah. G.A.R.
Thank you so much for stopping by. This was great, and it was great to hear the story, and you know, congratulations on everything you've done with the
Yeah,
building.
and I can't wait to hear like what happens to the artifacts and all the footage. That's going to be, the story continues.
Yeah, no, this was phenomenal. Thanks for having me. Thank you much.
All right, until next time, Detroit's moving.
Keep up.
The D Brief.
Your guide to Detroit's arts and entertainment scene.